Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in the room are often the quietest? Not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't feel the need to prove anything. True strength isn't found in loud declarations or dramatic displays. It lives in the quiet spaces between reactions, in the steady breath taken before responding, in the invisible fortress of a mind that remains unshaken even when everything around it is in chaos. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That idea that our greatest power lies not in controlling what happens to us, but in mastering how we respond, is at the very heart of what it means to possess invisible strength. This isn't about suppressing emotion or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about cultivating a deeper kind of resilience, one that allows you to face uncertainty, criticism, and adversity without losing your center. Throughout this video, we'll explore core Stoic principles like emotional mastery, mindful presence, and healthy detachment practices that have guided thinkers, leaders, and everyday people toward a more grounded and powerful way of living. These are not abstract ideas, they are tools for real life, tools that help you respond instead of react, observe instead of judge, and act with intention rather than impulse. Think about your own life for a moment. How do you respond when plans fall apart, when someone criticizes you, when you're faced with a challenge you didn't expect? This video is designed as a practical guide to help you develop that unshakable mental strength through consistent, often silent practice. We'll move beyond theory and into actionable wisdom you can apply from today onward. This isn't about becoming stoic in the way pop culture sometimes misunderstands it, cold or unfeeling. It's about becoming mentally clear, emotionally balanced, and profoundly resilient. Ready to explore how? Let's begin. Invisible strength begins not with trying to change the world around you, but with a clear understanding of what is actually within your power to change. This is the very foundation of Stoic philosophy, a concept known as the Dichotomy of Control. It's the idea that some things are within our control and absolutely everything else is not. The things within our control are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, in short, our own judgments and actions. Everything not within our control includes our body, our property, our reputation, our job, and the actions of other people. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly when he said, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a practical tool for mental freedom. When you truly internalize this distinction, you stop wasting precious mental energy fighting battles you cannot win. Think about a daily frustration like being stuck in a traffic jam. You cannot control the red lights, the other drivers, or the fact that there's construction ahead. What you can control is your response. You can choose to white-knuckle the steering wheel, rage at the cars around you, and arrive at your destination stressed and angry. Or you can accept the reality of the situation you cannot change, put on a podcast you enjoy, and use the time for a moment of quiet reflection. The traffic jam itself is neutral. It is your judgment of it, your belief that it is bad or unfair, that creates the suffering. The same principle applies to criticism. You cannot control what other people say or think about you, but you have complete authority over whether you internalize that criticism, whether you learn from it if it's useful, or whether you let it go if it's not. Your power doesn't lie in silencing others, it lies in governing your own reaction. This shift in focus from the external world to your internal world is where unshakable mental strength is forged. Every time you consciously choose to invest your effort only in what you can influence, you are building that inner citadel. You are training your mind to find its stability from within, making it immune to the constant chaos and change of external events. It's the difference between being a leaf blown about by every wind and being the deep-rooted tree that remains standing through the storm. The goal is to anchor yourself so firmly in your own reasoned choices that the opinions of others and the unpredictability of life simply lose their power to disturb your peace. So consider this for a moment. Where in your own life are you spending energy trying to control the uncontrollable? Is it in seeking a specific person's approval? In desperately wanting a situation to unfold in one exact way? Just identifying that one area is the first powerful step toward reclaiming your energy and building that invisible strength. How do you respond when your plans suddenly fall apart? When that important meeting gets cancelled without warning, or you receive news that completely derails your day? For most of us, the initial reaction is a surge of frustration, anxiety, or even anger, a wave of emotion that demands an immediate outlet. But the Stoics identified a far more powerful response, a state they called apatheia, which is not apathy, but rather a state of calm clarity where your judgments are not clouded by turbulent, reactive emotions. This is emotional equanimity, the ability to meet chaos with a tranquil mind. Seneca, the great Roman Stoic, wrote that the mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. He believed that a peaceful mind was the ultimate advantage in adversity, a fortress that no external event could breach. This tranquility isn't about feeling nothing. It's about creating a crucial space between the event itself and your response to it. It's the practice of temperance, one of the 4 cardinal Stoic virtues, which in this context means exercising self-restraint and moderation in our emotional reactions. The key is that pause. When unexpected bad news arrives, perhaps a project at work has failed despite your best efforts, the untrained mind might spiral into panic or self-recrimination. The person cultivating equanimity, however, takes a breath. They acknowledge the disappointment without being consumed by it. They might even silently note, "This is an obstacle. This is a test of my character." They understand that the event itself is neutral. It is their assigned value of catastrophic or unfair that fuels the emotional fire. By pausing, you interrupt the automatic chain reaction and create an opportunity for a chosen response, one aligned with your values rather than your impulses. Think of it like this: a calm lake reflects the sky and trees with perfect clarity. A turbulent, churning lake only shows a distorted, muddy image. Your mind works the same way. When you allow it to be stirred up by every unexpected event, your perception becomes distorted, and your decisions are more likely to be poor. Maintaining equanimity allows you to see the situation and your options within it with startling clarity. This strength is invisible because it happens entirely internally. No one needs to see you struggle, not to yell or panic. The result is simply a composed, capable person who handles difficulty with grace. Can you recall a recent time when you felt a strong emotional trigger, perhaps a critical comment from a colleague or a sudden change in your personal plans? In that moment, if you had inserted just a single, conscious breath between the trigger and your reaction, what different choice might have become available to you? In a world full of noise, silence can be your greatest ally. We often feel pressured to fill every pause, to voice every opinion, to react instantly to whatever comes our way. But the Stoics understood that true strength isn't always found in adding to the conversation. Sometimes it's found in the profound power of withholding your words and simply observing. Marcus Aurelius, in his private journal, offered a powerful reminder for himself. Take a good hard look at people's ruling principle, especially of the wise, what they run from and what they seek out. This wasn't about judgment, it was about understanding. He was practicing the art of silent observation, gathering data about the world and the people in it without the filter of his own immediate emotional reaction. This practice is a form of mental martial arts. By choosing not to speak, you are not being passive. You are actively creating space to understand the full context of a situation, to read the room, to listen not just to the words being said, but to the intentions and emotions behind them. In a heated meeting, for instance, the instinct might be to defend your idea the moment it faces criticism. But what happens if you stay silent for just a few moments longer? You might notice that the person objecting is actually anxious about an unrelated deadline, and their criticism isn't about the quality of your work but about their own stress. You might see alliances form in the room, understand unspoken concerns, and gather information that allows you to craft a far more effective and empathetic response when you do choose to speak. Your silence becomes a strategic advantage, allowing you to respond with precision rather than react with defensiveness. This extends far beyond the boardroom. Consider a personal conflict where someone is upset with you. The natural urge is to interrupt, to explain your side, to justify your actions. But what if you made the conscious choice to just listen? To let them express their entire grievance without a single interjection. This doesn't mean you agree with them. It means you are granting them the respect of being heard. In that silence, you often diffuse the emotional charge of the situation. You also give yourself the gift of time to process what they are actually saying, time to let your own initial defensiveness settle, and time to choose a response that de-escalates rather than inflames. Your silent, attentive presence can be more powerful than any argument you could possibly win. This week, I invite you to try a simple but profound exercise. In one conversation, perhaps with a partner, a friend, or a colleague, make a deliberate decision to practice pure observation. Your only job is to listen. Don't formulate your response while they're talking. Don't wait for your turn to speak. Just absorb. Notice their body language, the tone of their voice, the words they emphasize. Afterward, take a moment to reflect. What did you learn about them or about the situation that you would have missed if you had been focused on talking? You may find that in the quiet space you create, understanding grows, and with it, a deeper, more unshakable form of strength. What if you could train your mind not just to endure discomfort, but to actually thrive within it, to see hardship not as a threat to be avoided, but as an opportunity to build unshakable resilience? This is the essence of the Stoic practice known as voluntary discomfort, a deliberate and powerful method for forging mental strength in the quiet moments of everyday life. The philosopher Musonius Rufus, a major influence on Epictetus, taught that practicing hardship voluntarily is like a soldier training in peacetime. He said, "In order to be prepared for the inevitable hardships of life, one should practice enduring small difficulties voluntarily." The goal isn't to punish yourself or to live an ascetic life devoid of joy. It's the exact opposite. It's to expand your capacity for joy by shrinking your fear of discomfort. It's a form of vaccination for the soul, giving yourself a small, controlled dose of difficulty so that you become immune to the larger, unexpected challenges that life will inevitably send your way. Think about fear for a moment. So much of our anxiety stems from the unknown, from the dread of a potential future discomfort. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if I fail? This practice systematically dismantles that fear by proving to yourself, through direct experience, that you can handle more than you think. You are not trying to prove that you are tough to anyone else. This is a private conversation between you and your own limits. Each time you willingly choose a small hardship, you are sending a powerful, silent message to your deepest self. I am capable. I am resilient. I do not need perfect conditions to be at peace. This builds a profound and unshakable self-reliance that no external circumstance can ever take from you. The forms this practice can take are as simple as they are effective. It could be choosing to take a cold shower for the final minute of your morning routine. That initial shock of cold is a tiny, controlled crisis. Your instinct is to recoil, to escape, to seek immediate comfort. But when you consciously choose to stay under the water, to steady your breath, and to observe the sensation without panic, you are not just taking a shower, you are conducting a masterclass in emotional regulation. You are practicing how to stay calm in the face of a sudden, unpleasant stimulus. This exact same skill translates directly to receiving upsetting news or facing a sudden professional setback. Your body has already learned on a physiological level that discomfort is not an emergency. Other practices might include walking instead of driving for a short errand, fasting from a meal or from social media for a day, or deliberately taking on a complex mental task without complaining. The key is in the voluntary nature of the act. You are in control. You are choosing the difficulty, which means you are also proving that you are stronger than it. This week, I challenge you to select one small, voluntary discomfort and integrate it into your life. It doesn't need to be dramatic or extreme. Perhaps it's deciding to drink your coffee black this week instead of with sugar, using that minor craving as a moment to practice discipline. Maybe it's leaving your phone in another room for an hour each evening, willingly embracing the slight boredom that follows and discovering what thoughts or creativity emerge in that quiet space. The specific act matters less than the intention behind it. The intention is to gently stretch your comfort zone, to remind yourself that you are the author of your experience, and to build that invisible, internal muscle of resilience that will hold you steady when life's inevitable, involuntary hardships arrive. Imagine facing criticism, a personal insult, or a direct provocation without feeling that immediate, hot surge of anger or that desperate need to defend yourself and set the record straight. That quiet space, that gap between the external event and your internal response, is where the art of non-reactivity is mastered. This is a cornerstone of invisible strength. The Stoics weren't suggesting we become emotionless robots. They were teaching us to become the undisputed masters of our own internal world, to choose our responses with intention rather than being puppets jerked around by the opinions and actions of others. The great teacher Epictetus gave us perhaps the most concise and powerful formula for this when he wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He expanded on this by explaining that we are disturbed not by things themselves, but by the views which we take of them. An event is just an event. It is the story we tell ourselves about that event, the meaning we assign to it, that generates our emotional turbulence. This is a radical shift in perspective. It means that your peace of mind is never truly held hostage by another person. Someone can hurl an insult in your direction, but that insult only has the power to wound you if you internally agree with it, if you grant it credibility. If you can see it for what it truly is, merely a string of words formed by another person who is likely acting from their own pain, ignorance, or frustration, then it loses its toxic power. It becomes like a gift you refuse to accept. They are offering you their anger, their insult, their negativity, and you have the ultimate power to simply leave it sitting there unclaimed. Your non-reaction isn't a sign of weakness, it is the ultimate demonstration of strength. It communicates silently but powerfully that your sense of self-worth is so firmly rooted within you that it cannot be shaken by external noise. Let's paint a practical picture. You're at a family gathering and a relative known for their sharp comments makes a pointed remark about your career choice, implying you aren't as successful as you should be. The immediate, automatic reaction is one of defensiveness. Your heart rate jumps, your face flushes, and a retort forms on your tongue. You feel the urge to list your accomplishments, to justify your life, to put them in their place. This is the classic reactive pattern. Now, imagine applying the Stoic filter. You hear the words and you consciously pause. You separate the event, the sound waves of their comment, from your interpretation of it. You recognize that their comment says far more about their own insecurities and values than it does about your actual life. You might even feel a flicker of empathy for someone who feels the need to make such comments. And then you choose your response. It might be a simple, calm, "I appreciate your concern," before smoothly changing the subject. It might be a genuine, unbothered smile and no verbal response at all. The key is that your inner calm remains intact. You haven't given them the keys to your emotional state. This art requires practice. It's about building a new mental muscle, the muscle of pause. In that tiny space between the trigger and your reaction, you reclaim your power. You move from being a reactor to being an actor, consciously directing the play of your own life. Think back to a recent moment where you felt yourself overreacting. Perhaps it was a terse email from a coworker that ruined your entire morning, or a rude driver on the road that put you in a foul mood for hours. Now reimagine that moment through a Stoic lens. What if, in that instant, you had been able to whisper to yourself Epictetus's teaching, "I am disturbed not by this event, but by my view of it"? How might that have changed your entire day? That is the power you are cultivating, the power to remain unshakable, not because the world is calm, but because you have decided to be the calm within it. Where is your mind right now truly, right in this moment? Is it fully here, listening to these words, or is it drifting back to a conversation you had this morning, or leaping ahead to a task waiting for you later today? This constant mental time travel is one of the greatest sources of our anxiety and inner turmoil. We spend so much of our lives lost in memories of a past we cannot change or in anticipation of a future we cannot control. And in doing so, we completely miss the only moment we ever truly have, the present one. The Stoics understood this profound truth over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, in his private meditations, continually reminded himself to anchor his attention in the now. He wrote, "Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the situation at hand." His advice wasn't just philosophical, it was intensely practical. He was urging himself to do what we now call practicing mindfulness, to pull his focus away from the overwhelming abstract whole of life and place it squarely on the single, manageable task directly in front of him. This ancient wisdom is perfectly aligned with modern mindfulness practices, and for a powerful reason: it works. When you are fully present, you are not anxious. Anxiety, by its very nature, is a fear of a future potentiality. It's a story you are telling yourself about what might go wrong. Regret and resentment, on the other hand, are prisons of the past, holding you captive to events that have already concluded. Present moment, however, is almost always manageable. Right now, as you are reading this, are you in immediate physical danger? Is there a crisis happening in this exact second? For the vast majority of us, the answer is no. The problem we are stressing about exists only in our minds in a time that is not now. The Stoic practice of presence is the deliberate act of corralling your scattered attention and bringing it back to your current reality, to your immediate duty. It is the ultimate exercise of your power over the one thing you can always control, your focus. So how do we actually do this when our minds are so conditioned to wander? We start small with the most mundane activities, and we transform them into exercises in mental discipline. consider something as simple as drinking a cup of coffee. How often do you drink it while scrolling on your phone, reading the news, or already thinking about your first meeting? You consume the entire beverage without ever truly tasting it. The Stoic practice would be to drink that same cup of coffee with your full and complete attention. Feel the warmth of the mug in your hands. Notice the rich aroma. Truly taste the flavor with each sip. When your mind inevitably drifts to your to-do list, gently and without judgment, guide it back to the sensation of drinking your coffee. This isn't a mystical exercise, it is a fundamental retraining of your brain. You are building the neural muscle of focus. The same practice can be applied to walking. Instead of listening to a podcast or planning your dinner, feel the connection of your feet with the ground. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Observe the sights and sounds around you without immediately labeling them as good or bad. You are simply present, an observer in your own life. This practice is a form of invisible strength because it happens entirely within the theater of your own mind. To an outside observer, you are just someone drinking coffee or taking a walk, but internally, you are engaged in a profound act of reclamation. You are reclaiming your attention from the pull of past and future and anchoring it firmly in the reality of the now. This builds immense mental clarity. When you are fully present with a task, you perform it better, you make fewer errors, you are more creative, you are more responsive to the subtle cues in your environment. And most importantly, you drain the power from the anxieties that thrive on inattention. A mind focused on the sensation of breathing or the taste of warm bread has no room to simultaneously catastrophize about a project deadline. The invitation here is to begin building this muscle with a very manageable commitment. Each day, for just 5 minutes, choose one simple activity and commit to doing it with your complete and undivided attention. It could be those 5 minutes spent sipping your morning beverage. It could be washing the dishes and feeling the warmth of the water on your hands. It could be simply sitting in a chair and focusing on nothing but the rhythm of your inhales and exhales. Your mind will wander, that is its nature. The practice is not to achieve perfect, empty-minded focus. The practice is in the gentle act of noticing it has wandered and bringing it back again and again. Each time you do this, you are not failing, you are succeeding. You are performing a single rep for your mind, strengthening your ability to be here now, building an unshakable peace that is not dependent on what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow. How would you act if success or failure didn't matter? If the final outcome of your efforts had no bearing on your sense of self-worth or inner peace? This might sound like a radical, even counterintuitive question in a world that so intensely celebrates results, victories, and tangible achievements. But this exact shift in focus from the uncontrollable outcome to the controllable effort is at the heart of a powerful Stoic practice known as detachment from outcomes. This isn't about becoming passive, indifferent, or abandoning your goals. It's about redefining what true success means. It means investing all of your energy into the quality of your actions, your intentions, your ethics, your dedication, while simultaneously releasing your tight-fisted grip on the result. The ancient Stoics called this related idea amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It is the profound willingness to embrace and accept whatever happens, not with resignation, but with the understanding that every outcome, whether we label it good or bad, offers a unique opportunity for growth and virtue. The philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, understood this better than most. He offered a beautifully simple analogy to explain this principle. He said, "In the sport of life, we are like athletes playing a game of ball. Our job is not to control where the ball goes, but to skillfully handle it when it comes to us, and to make the best possible throw we can." The ball, in this case, represents the outcome. It is influenced by the wind, the other players, the imperfections of the field. It is ultimately out of our hands. But our throw, our effort, our technique, our focus, that is entirely within our domain. Seneca echoed this sentiment when he advised, "We should always seek to do our best, but never demand that our best must be rewarded by a specific result." This is the core of invisible strength, finding your validation and your satisfaction in the integrity of your own actions, making yourself immune to the unpredictable and often unfair whims of fortune. Let's bring this down to earth with a scenario almost everyone can relate to: the job application process. You spend days crafting the perfect resume and cover letter, tailoring it specifically to the role, researching the company, and practicing for the interview. You walk into the interview and give it your absolute best. You are articulate, engaged, and authentic. This, your preparation and your performance, is your throw. It is 100% within your control. Now, what happens after you leave that room is almost entirely out of your control. The company might have an internal candidate already chosen. The hiring manager might have had a terrible morning and be in a foul mood. The budget for the role might get cut. If you have attached your entire sense of self and your happiness to the single outcome of getting that job offer, you are setting yourself up for potential devastation. Your excellent performance becomes meaningless in the face of a rejection. But if you have practiced Stoic detachment, your evaluation of the event is completely different. You can walk away thinking, "I am proud of how I presented myself. I was prepared, I was professional, and I did everything within my power to succeed." The result is not mine to command. A rejection might be disappointing, but it does not devastate you. It doesn't shake your confidence, because your confidence is rooted in your effort, not in the external validation of an offer letter. The same principle applies to creative projects. An artist can pour their soul into a painting, perfecting every brushstroke with love and dedication. That creative process is their domain. Whether the painting sells for thousands of dollars or is ignored by the public is a matter of taste, trends, and luck factors far beyond the artist's control. To tie their joy to the sale is to hand over the keys to their happiness to a fickle world. This practice builds immense resilience because it fundamentally changes your relationship with failure. Failure is no longer a verdict on your worth. It is simply data. It is feedback on a specific attempt in a specific set of circumstances. It allows you to learn, adapt, and try again without the crushing weight of shame or self-recrimination. Your sense of worth becomes an internal, unshakable constant, not a variable that fluctuates with every win and loss. This is the essence of mental fortitude. It allows you to take bigger risks, to be more creative, and to pursue meaningful goals without the paralyzing fear of not achieving them. You begin to act not because you are guaranteed a certain result, but because the action itself is aligned with your values and is its own reward. Take a moment to reflect on a goal you are currently working toward. It could be a fitness target, a financial objective, a relationship you are trying to improve, or a project at work. Now, gently shift your perspective. Can you identify the aspects of this endeavor that are truly within your sphere of control? Your effort, your consistency, your attitude, your preparation. And can you also identify the elements that are not? The final number on the scale, the approval of others, market conditions, someone else's feelings. The practice for this week is to consciously pour all of your energy and attention into that first list, the effort, while consciously practicing a light release of the second list, the outcome. Notice how this shift changes your daily experience. Does it reduce anxiety, increase your enjoyment of the process itself? This is how you build a strength that remains steady, regardless of what life throws your way. Have you ever won an argument but lost your peace? that hollow victory, that lingering tension in your chest long after the other person has walked away, it's a clear sign that true strength wasn't found in the battle of words. The Stoics placed immense value on harmony and inner tranquility, and they understood that many conflicts are simply not worth the mental and emotional energy they consume. Engaging in a petty dispute is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You might feel like you're doing something, but you're only making the situation worse. The Roman philosopher Seneca offered brilliantly blunt advice on this, writing, "To quarrel with a man of this character is like setting fire to your own house because a smoke stain annoys you on the neighbor's wall." His point is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Arguing with someone who is ignorant, aggressive, or simply not arguing in good faith is an act of self-sabotage. You are the one who ends up getting burned. This isn't about being a pushover or avoiding difficult conversations. It's about exercising discernment. It's about recognizing the difference between a meaningful discussion aimed at mutual understanding and a pointless skirmish fought for ego's sake. The Stoic values of wisdom and justice guide us here. Wisdom helps us ask the crucial question: is this conflict necessary? Will engaging in this argument actually lead to a positive resolution, or is it just a trap for my peace of mind? Justice reminds us that it is often unfair to ourselves to sacrifice our hard-won equanimity for the fleeting and illusory satisfaction of proving someone wrong. Your silent restraint in the face of provocation is not a concession of defeat. It is a conscious declaration that your inner peace is more valuable than their approval or your need to be right. You are demonstrating that you are governed by your own principles, not by someone else's bad behavior. Consider a real-world scenario. You're having dinner with a group of friends, and someone makes a politically charged comment designed to get a rise out of you. The old, automatic pattern would be to take the bait, to counter their point, to present your facts, to win the debate playing out at the dinner table. But what is the likely outcome? Voices get raised, others feel uncomfortable, and the evening is ruined. Everyone leaves tense and annoyed. Now imagine the alternative. You hear the comment, you feel that familiar surge of energy, that desire to respond, but instead you take a slow breath. You might simply offer a neutral, non-committal nod and change the subject to something more harmonious. Or you might choose to say nothing at all, allowing the comment to hang in the air without your energy to give it life. By not engaging, you have not agreed with them. You have simply refused to play a game you cannot win. You have protected your peace and preserved the harmony of the gathering. Your silent strength, in this case, is far more powerful and influential than any argument you could have made. This practice extends to digital spaces as well, where provocation is constant and often anonymous. The temptation to craft the perfect, cutting reply to a negative comment online can be overwhelming. But what does victory look like in that arena? You might have the last word in a thread nobody else is reading, but you have sacrificed your time and mental space to a stranger whose only goal was to upset you. The Stoic move is to close the tab, to delete the notification without a response. You walk away with your energy intact, and they are left shouting into a void. Your silence is your shield. The next time you feel provoked, whether by a family member, a colleague, or a stranger online, I invite you to see it as a training exercise for this exact form of invisible strength. When you feel that urge to retort, to correct, to defend, pause. In that moment of pause, reclaim your power. Make a conscious choice. Ask yourself if this is a fire worth fueling. Then experiment with the profound strength of simply not responding. Observe what happens within you. You'll likely find that the initial urge to fight passes quickly. leaving behind a deep and quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are no longer easily manipulated by the opinions or actions of others. What if you could armor your mind with daily reflection, not with physical barriers or loud declarations, but with the quiet, consistent practice of looking inward to understand your own thoughts and reactions? This is the profound power of Stoic self-examination, a practice that builds a resilient inner core capable of withstanding any external pressure. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a master of this art, emphasized its importance in his letters, writing, "I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." He wasn't engaging in self-criticism for its own sake. He was conducting a daily audit of his character, a process that allowed him to learn from his experiences and consciously strengthen his virtues while identifying areas for growth. This nightly review, known in Greek as ephemeron, was a non-negotiable ritual for many Stoics, a way to transform everyday life into a continuous classroom for the soul. Think of your mind as a castle. Every day, the world outside lays siege to its walls with distractions, provocations, unexpected events, and the opinions of others. Without maintenance, the walls develop cracks, the gates weaken, and your inner peace becomes vulnerable. The practice of daily reflection is the work of the master stonemason, quietly and methodically repairing those breaches each night, ensuring that by morning, your defenses are not only restored but stronger than before. It's how you process the events of the day, not as they happened in the external world, but as you experience them internally. Did a colleague's offhand comment irritate you? Reflection allows you to ask why. Was it the comment itself or an old insecurity it tapped into? By dissecting your emotional reactions, you cease to be a passive victim of your triggers and become an active investigator of your own psyche. You start to see patterns. Perhaps you are most reactive when you're tired, or maybe a particular type of criticism always stings because it connects to a deeper fear. This knowledge is power. It is the blueprint for your own mental fortification. The beauty of this practice is in its simplicity and privacy. You don't need any special tools or a great deal of time. A simple notebook and a few minutes of quiet are all that's required. The process can be structured around a few powerful questions, much like the Stoics themselves might have used. First, ask yourself, where did I act in alignment with my values today? Perhaps you practiced patience in a long line, showed kindness to a stranger, or maintained your composure during a stressful moment. Acknowledging these victories, however small, is crucial. It reinforces positive behavior and builds confidence in your ability to act virtuously. The second question is just as important. Where did I fall short? This isn't about self-flagellation. It's about honest, compassionate observation. Maybe you snapped at a loved one, succumbed to a procrastination urge, or spent too much mental energy worrying about something outside your control. The key is to note this without judgment, simply as data. See it as a learning opportunity. Finally, ask, what lesson can I take from today to improve tomorrow? This transforms the reflection from a passive review into an active strategy session for your own growth. The goal is progress, not perfection. Each day offers a new chance to practice being the person you wish to become. Imagine ending your day not by mindlessly scrolling through a screen, but by engaging in this brief, empowering conversation with yourself. Over time, this practice does more than just help you manage daily stress. It fundamentally rewires your relationship with experience itself. You begin to approach each day not just as something to be lived, but as material to be reflected upon and learned from. Challenges are no longer mere obstacles. They become the very subjects of your evening study, the raw material for building greater wisdom and resilience. You are actively participating in your own evolution. building an unshakable inner self that is prepared not just for today's troubles, but for whatever tomorrow may bring. In a fast-paced world that celebrates instant results and immediate gratification, patience truly is a superpower. It's the quiet force that allows you to endure delays and navigate obstacles without losing your composure or your clarity. For the Stoics, patience wasn't merely about waiting. It was an active, virtuous practice of endurance and wisdom, a conscious acceptance of the natural pace of life. Marcus Aurelius, ruling over a vast and often tumultuous empire, constantly reminded himself of this necessity. He wrote in his Meditations, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." At its core, this is a profound lesson in patience, accepting the timeline of events and the nature of other people without internal resistance or frantic struggle. He understood that fighting against the current of reality only leads to exhaustion and frustration, while patience allows you to conserve your energy for what truly matters. This Stoic virtue is deeply intertwined with their core principle of focusing only on what is within your control. You cannot control how quickly the line at the coffee shop moves, the pace of your colleagues' feedback on a shared project, or the speed at which you reach a personal goal. What you can control is your response to the waiting. Impatience is essentially a form of protest against reality. It's your mind arguing with the way things are. It screams, "This should be happening faster," or "This delay is unacceptable." But this mental rebellion doesn't change the situation. It only pollutes your inner state with anxiety and irritability, making you suffer twice. Once from the delay itself, and again from your own negative reaction to it. Patience, in the Stoic sense, is the decision to drop that argument. It is the calm acknowledgement that things are unfolding on their own schedule, and your power lies in choosing how you will spend the intervening time. Consider the mundane, everyday test of waiting in a long, slow-moving queue. The impatient person radiates tension. They sigh audibly, shift their weight, check their phone incessantly, and cast annoyed glances at the cashier. They are in a battle with circumstances, and they are losing that battle with every passing second because the line will not move any faster for their distress. The person practicing Stoic patience stands differently. They might observe the same delay, but they accept it as a simple fact, not a personal injustice. They might use the time to practice a moment of mindfulness, simply noticing their breath or the surroundings. They might use it to plan their day or even to enjoy a few moments of uninterrupted thought. The external circumstance is identical, but the internal experience is worlds apart. One person leaves the experience drained and irritated. The other leaves with their peace intact, perhaps even slightly refreshed. This applies just as powerfully to more significant life events like the slow, often frustrating progress toward a long-term goal. Whether you're building a business, learning a new skill, or improving your health, progress is rarely linear. There are plateaus, setbacks, and periods where it feels like nothing is happening. Impatience in these moments can be devastating. It can lead you to abandon worthwhile endeavors simply because they aren't unfolding on your preferred timetable. Stoic patience asks you to reframe this. Instead of focusing on the distant horizon, bring your attention to the single, small step right in front of you. Find satisfaction in the daily effort itself, the process of learning, the act of practicing, the discipline of showing up, rather than fixating on the final result. This shifts your source of motivation from an unpredictable future outcome to a controllable present action, building resilience and making the journey itself sustainable and even enjoyable. Where in your own life does impatience most frequently steal your peace? Is it during your daily commute when you're stuck in traffic? Is it waiting for a response to an important message, your anxiety growing with each silent minute? Or is it with the slow progress of a personal transformation you're working toward? Identify that one recurring trigger. Then, the next time it arises, see it as your training ground. When you feel that familiar surge of frustration, take it as your cue to pause. Remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. You cannot control the traffic, but you can control whether you listen to an interesting podcast or use the time for quiet reflection. You cannot control when someone replies, but you can control whether you use the waiting time productively or let it consume you with worry. This conscious shift is the practice. It's how patience transforms from an abstract concept into a tangible, invisible strength that you carry with you, allowing you to meet life's inevitable delays not with struggle, but with graceful and unwavering calm. What if you could meet life's inevitabilities with grace, not with resignation or bitterness, but with a quiet, unshakable acceptance that leaves your inner peace completely intact? This is the profound power of the Stoic practice of acceptance, a cornerstone of invisible strength that teaches us to align ourselves with reality rather than exhaust ourselves fighting against it. The philosopher Epictetus, who knew immense hardship firsthand, offered perhaps the clearest guidance on this when he wrote, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This isn't a call for passive defeatism. It's an invitation to a radical form of cooperation with the universe. It means shifting your energy from futile resistance to intelligent adaptation, understanding that peace is found not by forcing life to conform to your demands, but by harmonizing your will with the way things actually are. Think of it like swimming in a powerful river. If you fight the current, thrashing against it and insisting it should flow in a different direction, you will quickly exhaust yourself and likely drown. But if you accept the direction and power of the current, you can work with it, using your energy to navigate its flow and steer yourself toward the shore. The river itself is neutral. Your suffering comes from the futile struggle, not the river. The same is true of life's events. A sudden rainstorm that cancels your outdoor picnic is just a weather pattern. Your disappointment and frustration are born from your attachment to a specific, sun-filled plan. Acceptance is the act of putting down the mental umbrella you were holding over that idealized plan, and instead simply feeling the rain on your skin, perhaps even finding a new kind of joy in the sound it makes on the roof as you move the gathering indoors. You haven't given up on having a good time, you've simply stopped arguing with the weather. This practice reveals itself in countless daily scenarios. You meticulously plan your workday, and then your child wakes up sick, requiring you to cancel everything. You can spend the day seething with internal frustration, mentally complaining about the disruption and counting all the lost productivity, which only adds a layer of misery to an already challenging situation. Or you can accept the new reality. This is what is happening now. My role today is not productive worker, it is caring parent. By accepting this unavoidable circumstance, you free up all the mental energy you are wasting on resistance and can channel it fully into being present and compassionate. The situation hasn't changed, but your experience of it transforms entirely. Another classic example is travel delays. A flight cancellation is frustrating, but the hours spent in anger at the airline, in anxiety about missed connections, and in mental protest against the reality of the situation are hours of self-inflicted suffering layered on top of the simple inconvenience. The person practicing Stoic acceptance acknowledges the delay, does what is within their power to rebook, and then settles into the unexpected downtime with a book or a calm mind, preserving their energy for the journey ahead. The power of this approach is that it makes you incredibly adaptable and resilient. Life is fundamentally unpredictable. The only thing you can truly count on is that things will not always go according to plan. When you practice acceptance, you are not waiting for the storm to pass. You are learning to find a sense of calm and stability right in the middle of it. You are building a mind that can handle any change in circumstances because it is no longer tethered to a rigid, specific version of how things must be. Your happiness and peace become internal conditions, independent of external events. This is the very essence of being unshakable. Right now, in this moment, I want you to bring to mind one unavoidable circumstance in your life. It might be something small, like a persistent morning traffic jam on your commute. It might be something larger, like a health condition you are managing or a past event you still mentally struggle against. For just a few minutes, I invite you to practice a conscious experiment in acceptance. Instead of mentally fighting it, wishing it were different, or telling yourself stories about how unfair it is, simply try on the thought, this is what is true right now. Don't judge it, don't resist it. Just acknowledge its existence as a fact of your current reality, much like you would acknowledge that it is daytime or nighttime. Notice what happens in your body and your mind when you do this. Does a tension release? Does a sense of struggle ease? This simple act of dropping the argument with reality is where you begin to reclaim a profound and silent power over your own experience. How does your mere presence affect the people around you, even before you utter a single word? We often underestimate the silent, powerful influence we radiate simply through our demeanor. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that cultivating an outer calm was not just a personal practice for inner peace, but a form of social responsibility and leadership. A steady composure in the face of turmoil acts as an anchor for those who are adrift in their own anxieties. Seneca, who lived through some of Rome's most turbulent times, wrote powerfully about this, stating, "The mind that is relaxed, that has cast off all care, radiates a calm that spreads to all who approach it." This wasn't just about self-help, it was about creating a ripple effect of stability in a chaotic world. Your calmness becomes a non-verbal communication that everything is manageable, that there is no immediate emergency, and that rational thought is still in command. This principle transforms every challenging group situation into an opportunity to practice invisible strength. Imagine a crisis at work, a major project is failing, a critical deadline is missed, and panic begins to ripple through the team. Voices rise, fingers start pointing, and productive problem-solving grinds to a halt. Now, picture one person in that room who remains perfectly calm. They aren't indifferent, they are fully engaged, listening intently, but their breathing is steady, their posture is open, and their tone is measured. They don't need to shout to be heard. In fact, their very calmness makes people lean in to listen. This person is not necessarily the highest-ranking person in the room, but they instantly become a leader in that moment. Their demeanor silently broadcasts a crucial message. We can handle this. By regulating their own internal state, they help regulate the emotional temperature of the entire group, creating the psychological safety necessary for clear thinking and collaborative solutions to emerge. This extends far beyond the conference room and into our daily lives. Consider a parent dealing with a frantic child who has just had a minor accident. The child's world feels like it's ending, and their emotions are at a fever pitch. If the parent meets that energy with their own panic and raised voice, the child's fear will only intensify. But if the parent can project a calm, reassuring presence, a warm, steady voice, gentle hands, and confident eye contact, they absorb the child's anxiety and reflect back safety. The parent's calm demeanor doesn't solve the scraped knee, but it solves the terror surrounding it. The same dynamic plays out with a friend going through an emotional crisis. Your most powerful tool isn't always the perfect advice. It's your ability to sit with them in their distress without being swept away by it yourself, offering the silent strength of your unwavering presence. The next time you find yourself in a group setting charged with stress, be it a family gathering, a busy checkout line, or a tense meeting, I invite you to conduct a small experiment in awareness. First, turn your attention inward and take a quick inventory of your own state. Is your heart rate elevated? Are your shoulders tense? Are you mentally rehearsing arguments or catastrophizing? Then shift your attention outward. Observe the people around you. Notice how anxiety seems to be contagious. One person's nervous fidgeting can trigger another's impatient sigh, creating a feedback loop of collective stress. Now make a conscious choice to break the cycle. Straighten your posture, take a slow, deep breath that you don't let anyone see, and relax the muscles in your face. Decide that you will be the calm center in the storm. You don't need to say a word, just observe the subtle shift. You may notice others beginning to mirror your calm, their voices softening, their own posture relaxing slightly. In that quiet shift, you will have demonstrated a form of strength far more powerful than any argument you could have won. What if you could find strength in thankful silence? Not in loudly proclaiming your blessings for others to hear, but in a private, inward turn of attention that actively seeks out the good that already exists in your life, however simple or ordinary it may seem. This is the profound Stoic practice of gratitude, a quiet but powerful discipline that fortifies your mind against the constant pull of wanting more, of comparing yourself to others, and of focusing on what you lack. In a world that relentlessly pushes us to desire the next thing, the newer car, the bigger house, the more prestigious job, the Stoics offered a radical antidote, the deliberate cultivation of contentment with what is. Marcus Aurelius, despite his immense power and wealth, continually reminded himself of this. He wrote in his private meditations, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours." This is the core of the practice. It's a conscious recalibration of perspective, a mental exercise where you systematically shift your focus from absence to presence, from scarcity to abundance, and in doing so, you discover a deep and resilient well of strength that is entirely independent of your external circumstances. This isn't about naive positivity or ignoring life's genuine difficulties. It is about balance and wisdom. The Stoic understands that while some things in life are objectively challenging, our suffering is amplified exponentially by our tendency to overlook the good that coexists alongside the difficulty. A person might be stressed about their job, but within that same life, they have a warm bed to sleep in, food to eat, and perhaps the friendship of even one good person. Gratitude doesn't erase the stress of the job. It simply prevents that one negative from colonizing your entire mental landscape. It builds contentment not by adding more possessions to your life, but by subtracting the endless desire for them. When you truly appreciate the taste of a simple meal, the comfort of a roof overhead, or the reliability of your own body, you are, in that moment, invulnerable to the marketing messages and social pressures that tell you you need more to be happy. Your sense of worth and satisfaction becomes internally generated, making you mentally unshakable. The practice itself is beautifully simple and utterly private, making it the perfect exercise in invisible strength. You don't need to announce it to the world. Its power is felt entirely within you. One of the most effective methods is to create a daily mental list of things you are grateful for. This isn't a rushed, mechanical recitation. It's a quiet, mindful review as you lie in bed before sleep or during a quiet moment with your morning coffee. Turn your attention inward. Mentally note 3 specific things from the previous day or your current moment that you genuinely appreciate. The key is in the specificity. Instead of a general, "I'm grateful for my health," you might think, I am grateful that my legs felt strong during my walk today, allowing me to enjoy the fresh air. Instead of I'm grateful for my family, you might focus on a single, small moment. I am grateful for the sound of my child's laughter this afternoon when we were playing in the yard. This specificity makes the feeling of gratitude vivid and real, anchoring it in your actual experience rather than an abstract concept. This silent ritual does something remarkable to your brain. It trains your perceptual filters to actively scan your environment for things to appreciate, much like a photographer trains their eye to see interesting compositions. You begin to notice the small, easily overlooked gifts: the warmth of the sun on your skin, the kindness of a stranger who held a door open, the reliable functioning of your computer that allows you to work. Over time, this shifts your default mindset from one of seeking what's wrong to one of noticing what's right. This isn't delusion. It's a more complete and accurate view of reality, one that acknowledges the full spectrum of your experience rather than fixating solely on the negatives. This mental habit builds immense resilience because when a genuine hardship arrives, you have already built a foundation of acknowledged goodness. You have a deep, internal catalog of reasons to persevere, making you far less likely to be completely overwhelmed by a single challenge. I invite you to begin this practice tonight. Before you drift off to sleep in the quiet darkness, bring to mind 3 specific things from your day that you can hold in thankful silence. They don't need to be grand or profound. Perhaps it was the warmth of the shower you took, the flavor of your dinner, or the fact that a task you were dreading turned out to be easier than expected. Simply let your mind rest on each one for a few seconds, acknowledging its presence in your life. Observe the subtle shift in your emotional state as you do this. You may find that this simple act of silent gratitude is one of the most powerful and accessible tools you possess for building a mind that is not easily shaken by the whims of fortune. A mind that finds its strength not in what it acquires, but in what it already, thankfully, holds. How free would you be if you wanted less? This is not a question about deprivation, but about liberation. The Stoics identified a profound truth. Our mental peace is directly proportional to the number of things we believe we need to be happy. Every desire for something outside of our control, every craving for a specific outcome, every ache for a particular possession, every need for a certain type of approval is like a tiny chain that tethers our happiness to the unpredictable and often fickle external world. The philosopher Epictetus, who understood the nature of true freedom better than most, put it with stunning clarity: freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. He is pointing us toward a radical form of emancipation, one that comes from within. It is the freedom that arises when you realize you already possess everything you need to be at peace, right here, right now, within your own character and your capacity for reasoned choice. This discipline of desire is about making a crucial distinction between a natural preference and a destructive craving. The Stoics were not advocating for a life of extreme asceticism or suggesting we should not enjoy the good things life offers. It is perfectly natural to prefer comfort over discomfort, wealth over poverty, or praise over criticism. The problem arises when these preferences harden into rigid demands, when we transition from "I would prefer a successful career" to "I must have a successful career to be happy," or from "I enjoy having a nice car" to "I need that specific car to feel valued." This shift turns a simple want into a source of potential suffering because you have now placed your inner tranquility in the hands of factors you cannot ultimately control. The market might crash, the car might get scratched, the critic might speak, and if your happiness is tied to those externals, it will be shattered along with them. The discipline is in consciously relaxing that demand, in holding our preferences lightly, enjoying them when they are present but not being devastated by their absence. We can see this play out in two very common modern arenas: material cravings and the search for social validation. Let's take materialism first. We live in a world engineered to make us want more. Advertising constantly whispers that the next purchase will finally bring us satisfaction, that a newer phone, a faster car, or a trendier wardrobe is the key to our contentment. This creates a hedonic treadmill where we run faster and faster but never actually arrive at a state of lasting peace because the goalposts of desire keep moving. The Stoic practice here is to periodically question these impulses. Do I want this object because it serves a genuine need, or because I believe it will confer a status or identity that I feel lacking? The act of simply pausing before a purchase, of asking these questions, begins to weaken the chain of desire. It allows you to appreciate what you already have without the constant background noise of wanting the next thing. The desire for social validation is perhaps an even more powerful chain. This is the deep-seated need to be liked, approved of, and well regarded by others. We post on social media and anxiously await likes and comments. We shape our opinions and silence our true selves in meetings to avoid rocking the boat. We feel a surge of pride when praised and a crushing blow when criticized. Epictetus has piercing advice for this too. He said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. Don't wish to be thought to know everything." He is inviting us to embrace the freedom of not caring what others think about the parts of us that don't matter. When you tie your self-worth to the opinions of others, you hand them the remote control to your emotional state. They can lift you up or tear you down with a single word, and you have voluntarily made yourself their puppet. The discipline is to gradually transfer the source of your validation from outside to inside. To ask yourself not, "What will they think?" but, "Is this action aligned with my values? Am I acting with integrity?" The goal is to become the sole judge of your own character, so that another person's praise is a pleasant but unnecessary bonus, and their criticism is merely data to be considered, not a verdict to be internalized. This week, I invite you to conduct a simple but powerful audit of your own desires. Take a few quiet moments to yourself and identify one specific desire that you feel has an outsized influence on your peace of mind. It doesn't have to be a monumental life goal. It can be something small and daily. Perhaps it's the desire for your coworker to agree with your idea in a meeting. Maybe it's the desire to buy a new piece of technology that you've been obsessing over. It could even be the desire for your morning commute to be perfectly smooth, a desire that is shattered by the first red light you hit. Once you've identified it, your practice is not to fulfill it, but to consciously release your grip on it just for a little while. When the desire arises, notice it. Acknowledge it, and then gently remind yourself that your peace does not depend on its fulfillment. Your worth is not contingent on getting this thing. See if you can find a sense of okayness even without it. This is how you begin to forge a freedom that is truly unshakable, a freedom that no external circumstance can ever take from you. In solitude, we often find our greatest strength. This might seem counterintuitive in a world that constantly celebrates connection, collaboration, and being part of the crowd. But the Stoics understood that a different kind of power is forged in the quiet spaces we create for ourselves, away from the noise and opinions of others. Solitude, in the Stoic sense, is not about loneliness or isolation. It is a deliberate and chosen state of being alone with your own thoughts, a sacred space for self-examination and the cultivation of an unshakable inner core that doesn't require an audience to feel validated. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a powerful advocate for this practice. In one of his letters, he advised, "You must withdraw into yourself as much as you can." Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is mutual, for people learn while they teach. His point is profound. Withdrawing into yourself isn't an act of misanthropy. It is an essential act of maintenance. It is how you recharge, reflect, and ensure that when you do return to the company of others, you are coming from a place of strength and integrity, not from a place of neediness or depletion. Think of your mind as a glass of water that gets stirred up throughout the day. Every interaction, every piece of news, every demand and expectation adds sediment, clouding your clarity. Solitude is the practice of setting that glass down and allowing all the sediment to settle. Only in that stillness can you see yourself and your life with true clarity. Without this periodic withdrawal, you risk losing touch with your own values and simply mirroring the desires and anxieties of the people around you. Your opinions become echoes, your goals become borrowed, and your sense of self becomes fragile, dependent on the latest trend or the approval of your social circle. Solitude is the antidote. It is where you remember who you are when no one is watching, what you truly believe when no one is debating you, and what you genuinely want when no one is selling you anything. This is the foundation of self-reliance. When you are comfortable in your own company, you are never truly alone, and you are never truly powerless. So what does this look like in a practical, modern sense? It doesn't require a week-long silent retreat in a cabin, though that can be wonderful. It can be integrated into the fabric of your daily life through simple, accessible practices. One of the most powerful is the solo walk. This is not a walk for exercise or for listening to a podcast. It is a walk for its own sake, with no destination other than awareness. Leave your phone behind, or at the very least, keep it in your pocket. As you walk, don't try to force any specific thoughts. Simply observe. Notice the rhythm of your breath, the feeling of your feet connecting with the ground, the sounds of the world around you. When your mind inevitably drifts to a worry about work or a replay of a conversation, gently guide it back to the physical sensations of walking. This act is a form of moving meditation that grounds you firmly in your own experience, separate from the digital and social worlds. Another potent practice is dedicating just 10 minutes each morning to sitting in complete silence before the day begins. Don't check your phone, don't make a to-do list. Just sit with a cup of tea or coffee and be present with your own mind. You might simply focus on your breathing, or you might ask yourself a gentle guiding question like, what is most important today? Or, what quality do I want to cultivate? This isn't about achieving a blank mind. It's about creating a daily appointment with yourself, a non-negotiable check in that affirms you are the most important relationship you will ever have. Even something as simple as eating a single meal alone without any screens or reading material can become a profound exercise in self-reliance. You learn to enjoy your own company, to sit with your own thoughts without needing to be entertained or distracted. You discover that boredom is often just the gateway to a deeper creativity or a sudden insight that was previously drowned out by constant noise. The invitation here is to consciously and courageously schedule solitude. Look at your calendar for the coming week and block out a short period, even just 15 minutes, as an appointment with yourself. Treat it with the same respect you would treat a meeting with your most important client, because you are. During this time, disconnect completely from all external inputs. You might choose to go for that silent walk, sit in a quiet room, or simply gaze out a window. The activity is less important than the intention behind it. The intention to withdraw into yourself, to listen to your own thoughts, and to strengthen the most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. In these quiet moments, you are not missing out on the world. You are building the inner fortitude required to engage with it more wisely, calmly, and powerfully. What if you could face worst-case scenarios without that familiar, cold grip of anxiety tightening around your chest? What if, instead of being a source of dread, the mere thought of potential setbacks actually made you feel more prepared, more adaptable, and even more grateful for the present moment? This is not a fantasy. It is the very real power of a profound Stoic exercise known as Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Far from being a pessimistic practice, this is a strategic tool for building immense mental resilience. The Stoics understood that much of our fear and suffering doesn't come from the negative events themselves, but from the shock and unpreparedness we feel when they occur. By mentally rehearsing life's potential difficulties in advance, we effectively vaccinate our minds against the paralyzing effects of fear and surprise. Seneca, who frequently wrote about navigating life's uncertainties, championed this approach. He advised, "We should project our thoughts ahead of us at every turn and have in mind every possible eventuality instead of only the usual course of events." His point is brilliant in its simplicity. By anticipating the full spectrum of what could happen, we are never truly caught off guard. The blow, when it comes, is lessened because our mind has already visited that place and made its peace with the possibility. This practice of negative visualization is like a fire drill for the soul. We conduct fire drills not because we expect the building to burn down, but because we want everyone to know exactly what to do, calmly and efficiently, in the extremely unlikely event that it does. That precise, practiced knowledge eliminates the panic that leads to poor decisions. Premeditatio Malorum works the same way. You are not inviting disaster by thinking about it. You are building a detailed mental playbook for navigating it, should it ever arrive. This process systematically dismantles the unknown, which is the primary fuel for anxiety. When you walk through a feared scenario in your mind, you transform it from a terrifying, amorphous monster into a series of manageable, concrete steps. You move from a state of fearful avoidance to one of calm preparedness. Furthermore, and perhaps just as importantly, this exercise has a beautiful side effect. It dramatically heightens your appreciation for the present. By consciously imagining the loss of something you value, your health, your job, a relationship, you are instantly reminded of its preciousness. You don't need to actually lose it to feel a profound sense of gratitude for its current presence in your life. Let's make this tangible with a scenario many can relate to: the fear of job loss. The untrained mind avoids this thought at all costs. The mere hint of layoffs can trigger a spiral of anxiety, sleepless nights, and a sense of impending doom. Now apply the Stoic drill. You set aside 5 minutes of quiet time and you deliberately walk yourself through the possibility. You don't just stop at, "I lose my job." You go further. You imagine the conversation with your manager, the feeling of cleaning out your desk. Then you move to the next logical step. What would I do the next day? You might mentally update your resume, reach out to your professional network, research new industries, or even consider it a forced opportunity to finally start that business you've been dreaming about. You are not wallowing in fear, you are problem solving. You are asking and answering the question, what is the worst that could happen and how would I handle it? By the end of this mental rehearsal, the monster has been defanged. The outcome is still undesirable, but it is no longer a catastrophic, world-ending event. It is a challenge you have already begun to map out, a problem you are already equipped to start solving. The anxiety loses its power because you have stared directly at its source and realized you can survive it. The same method applies to a personal project you've poured your heart into. Imagine you've worked for months on a proposal, a book, or a piece of art. The fear of it being rejected or failing can be paralyzing. preventing you from even putting the final touches on it or sharing it with the world. The Stoic practice is to premeditate that rejection. Visualize opening the email that says no. Feel the initial pang of disappointment, then immediately follow that thought with your plan. All right, if this publisher says no, I will submit it to the next 5 on my list. If this gallery rejects it, I will host a showing myself. You have now reframed the rejection from a devastating final verdict into a mere logistical step in a longer process. You have prepared your response, and in doing so, you have robbed the potential failure of its ability to cripple you. This isn't about expecting to fail. It's about being so secure in your ability to handle failure that you are freed to pursue success with greater courage and less attachment. I invite you to try this powerful exercise right now. Bring to mind a situation that causes you a low level of background anxiety. It might be a financial concern, a health worry, or a difficult conversation you need to have. For just a few moments, close your eyes and give yourself permission to mentally walk through the worst-case scenario. But as you do, wear your Stoic armor. After you visualize the event itself, immediately shift your focus to your response. Ask yourself, what is within my control in this situation? What would be the first rational, virtuous step I would take? How could this challenge, as unwelcome as it is, potentially serve as a catalyst for a different kind of growth? This is not an exercise in fear, it is an exercise in empowerment. It is the deliberate cultivation of a mind that can look any outcome in the eye and respond not with panic, but with calm, reasoned action. Great strength is built in quiet, consistent actions, not in dramatic, one-time displays of willpower. We often fall for the illusion that mental fortitude is something we discover in a single, life-altering moment of crisis, but the Stoics knew a deeper truth. It is constructed brick by brick through the humble, daily repetition of small, intentional practices. This is the profound power of consistency, the quiet engine of character development that transforms fleeting inspiration into unshakable being. Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense burdens of leading an empire, never underestimated the cumulative power of small efforts. He reminded himself in his private writings, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions." This is a stunningly accurate description of neuroplasticity, ancient wisdom that modern science now confirms. Our brains, and therefore our characters, are literally forged by what we do consistently. Every time you choose patience over irritation, focus over distraction, or gratitude over complaint, you are not just acting virtuously in that moment, you are carving a neural pathway, making it that much easier to choose the same path the next time. You are sculpting your own mind. This stands in direct opposition to our culture's obsession with the grand gesture, the quick fix, the 30-day extreme makeover. We want to become mentally strong by next Tuesday, and when that doesn't happen, we get discouraged and give up. Stoicism offers a far more compassionate and effective path, the long, gentle, but unwavering application of pressure in the direction you wish to grow. It is the understanding that a river cuts through rock not through its power but through its persistence. Your daily practice doesn't need to be monumental to be transformative. In fact, its power lies in its modest, achievable nature. It is the commitment to writing just 3 sentences of Stoic reflection in a journal each night, not a 10-page essay you'll abandon after 2 days. It is the practice of taking one deep, conscious breath before responding to a stressful email, not vowing to never feel stress again. It is the decision to spend 5 minutes in the morning in silent contemplation of what is within your control, rather than trying to mentally solve all the world's problems before your first cup of coffee. These micro-practices are the reps and sets for your mental musculature. Alone, they seem insignificant, but compounded over weeks, months, and years, they create a foundation of resilience that cannot be toppled by a single storm. Consider the practical building blocks of this consistent life. The daily ritual of journaling, as Seneca practiced, is not merely a diary of events, it is an active dialogue with yourself. It is where you apply the dichotomy of control to the day's events, where you celebrate small victories of character, and where you gently course correct without self-flagellation. The consistent practice of mindfulness, even for a few minutes a day, is like constantly bringing a wandering puppy back to the spot on the rug. You are not failing when your mind wanders, you are succeeding each time you gently guide it back. This daily act strengthens your ability to remain present during a crisis. Even the simple, consistent practice of voluntary discomfort, like choosing to walk in the cold or skipping a second helping at dinner, is a daily vote for self-mastery over self-indulgence. Each small no to a minor desire strengthens your ability to say no to more significant temptations and distractions down the road. The compound interest on these tiny investments is a fortune of inner strength. The true test of this philosophy is not in the inspired beginning, but in the unglamorous middle. Anyone can be motivated for a day. The strength is found in showing up on the day you feel tired, uninspired, and see no visible progress. It is on that day that your simple, quiet action, writing in the journal, taking the mindful breath, refusing to complain carries more weight than a week of practice on motivated days. This is where you build the discipline that is independent of your fleeting feelings. Your commitment becomes a promise you make to yourself, and keeping it, especially when it's hard, builds a profound and unshakable self-trust. You learn that you can rely on yourself, and that knowledge becomes the bedrock of your confidence. This week, I extend a challenge to you, one that honors the power of the small and the consistent. Instead of attempting a complete life overhaul, choose one single, small Stoic practice, just one. Perhaps it is the nightly review of your day, asking yourself what you did well and what you could improve. Maybe it is a 1-minute pause of mindfulness before you begin your work. It could be as simple as practicing the dichotomy of control the moment you feel a surge of frustration. Commit to this one practice, and only this one, every single day for the next month. Don't worry about doing it perfectly, just focus on doing it consistently. Notice the subtle shifts. Do you find yourself pausing more easily in moments of stress? Does your inner critic become a bit quieter, your compassion a bit stronger? This is how the fortress is built, not with a single crane lifting a giant wall into place, but with the steady, patient laying of one small brick each day. How much energy do you waste every single day worrying about what other people might be thinking about you? It's a silent tax on your mental resources, a constant background hum of anxiety that can drain your creativity, limit your choices, and pull you away from your authentic path. The Stoics identified this desperate need for external approval as one of the greatest obstacles to true freedom and inner peace. Their solution was a radical shift in focus, away from the unpredictable and fickle opinions of others, and inward toward the one thing you can always control, the integrity of your own character and actions. The philosopher Epictetus, who prized freedom above all else, offered a brilliantly practical piece of advice on this. He said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.' This isn't about false modesty, it's a profound mental reframe." Epictetus is teaching us to completely disarm the power of gossip and criticism by accepting it, even leaning into it with humor. By doing so, you reveal that you are the sole judge of your own worth, and another person's opinion is merely a reflection of their own limited perspective, not a verdict on your reality. This shift is about reclaiming your personal sovereignty. When your sense of self-worth is tied to the approval of others, you hand them the remote control to your emotional state. They can lift you up with a compliment or devastate you with a critique, and you are left bouncing between euphoria and despair based on factors entirely outside your command. This is a terribly fragile way to live. The Stoic alternative is to build your self-worth on an internal foundation, on your own commitment to living virtuously according to your principles. Your validation comes from knowing you acted with courage when you were afraid, with justice when you attempted to be unfair, with wisdom when confusion was all around you. This internal scorecard is unshakable because it cannot be taken away, distorted, or withheld by anyone else. You are no longer a beggar seeking the crumbs of external approval. You are the owner of a self-sufficient fortress of character. We can see this play out in countless everyday decisions. Imagine you're in a work meeting and a popular idea is being discussed, an idea you genuinely believe is flawed or even unethical. The path of seeking approval would be to stay silent, to nod along, to sacrifice your own judgment for the comfort of belonging to the group consensus. The Stoic path, however, would be to gently but clearly voice your concerns, not because you are trying to be contrarian, but because it is the principled and truthful thing to do. Your metric for success is not whether everyone agrees with you, but whether you upheld your value of honesty and contributed to the best of your understanding. The outcome, whether your idea is accepted or rejected, is placed in the category of things outside your control. You find your satisfaction in the quality of your contribution, not in the popularity of its reception. The same principle applies to personal style, hobbies, or life choices. Choosing a career path, a way of dressing, or a lifestyle because it is authentically you and aligns with your values requires shrugging off the immense weight of perceived expectations. It is an act of quiet courage to live a life that is yours, not a performance designed for an audience of critics. This week, I invite you to become a quiet observer of your own mind, specifically watching for those subtle moments where you seek external validation. Notice the slight pang of disappointment when a social media post doesn't get as many likes as you hoped. Pay attention to the tiny edit you make to a story you're telling to make yourself look better in the eyes of a friend. Observe the urge to name, drop, or exaggerate an accomplishment to impress someone. These are all tiny threads tethering you to the opinions of others. Your practice is not to judge yourself for these very human impulses, but simply to notice them, and in that moment of noticing, to offer yourself a small, silent act of self-validation instead. You might think, my worth is not determined by their reaction, or I am enough exactly as I am in this moment. This is the daily, practical work of cutting those threads and building that inner fortress, brick by conscious brick, until you stand truly free. What if every single obstacle you faced was not a barrier but a doorway? What if the very challenges that make you want to quit were actually the exact training you needed to become the strongest version of yourself? This is the core of the Stoic perspective on adversity, a view that doesn't just ask us to endure difficulty, but to actively welcome it as the master sculptor of our character. The Stoics didn't see a comfortable, easy life as the ideal. They saw it as a missed opportunity for growth. A life without challenges is like a sword that never gets tested against a whetstone. It may look shiny, but it remains dull and useless when truly needed. Marcus Aurelius, who led the Roman Empire through constant war, plague, and political intrigue, framed this idea with unforgettable clarity. He wrote in his private meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This single sentence contains a universe of power. he is telling us that the obstacle itself is not the finish line, it is the path. The thing blocking your progress is not there to stop you. It is there to show you how to proceed, if only you have the eyes to see it and the courage to engage with it. This philosophy transforms our entire relationship with hardship. Instead of seeing a difficult person as a nuisance to be avoided, you can see them as a patience-building sparring partner. A financial setback becomes a crash course in frugality and creativity. A professional failure becomes a brutal but effective teacher, showing you exactly where your preparation or strategy was lacking. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What is this trying to teach me?" This reframe is the ultimate act of empowerment. It takes any situation, no matter how dire, and immediately uncovers the agency you still possess within it. You may not be able to control the storm, but you can absolutely learn how to sail your ship better because of it. Your character, your courage, your resilience, your patience is not built in the calm, sunny days. It is forged in the gale force winds and the pounding waves. Each time you choose to meet a challenge with calm determination instead of frantic panic, you are not just solving a problem, you are actively engraving that strength into the very core of your being. History is filled with stunning examples of this principle in action. Think of Nelson Mandela, who endured 27 years in prison. He could have emerged broken, bitter, and consumed by a desire for revenge. Instead, he used those long years of confinement as a forced retreat for introspection, study, and the cultivation of an almost superhuman patience and forgiveness. The prison bars, the ultimate symbol of limitation and oppression, became his unlikely training ground for becoming the leader who would heal a nation. Or consider the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps. In the midst of unimaginable suffering, he discovered a profound truth. Even when every external freedom is stripped away, we still retain the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. His adversity didn't break him. It revealed to him and through his writing to the world the indomitable nature of the human spirit. These aren't just stories about enduring, they are masterclasses in alchemy, turning the base metal of suffering into the gold of wisdom and strength. You don't need to be a historical figure to practice this. Your training ground is already here in the challenges of your own life. That difficult project at work that feels overwhelming isn't just a source of stress. It's your arena for developing focus and perseverance. The tension in a personal relationship isn't merely painful. It's an invitation to practice empathy, communication, and setting boundaries with grace. Even something as universal as a period of ill health can become a profound teacher of patience, listening to your body, and appreciating the simple gift of a pain-free day. The obstacle itself truly becomes the way. It points directly to the virtue you need to develop next. A lack of resources teaches resourcefulness. A betrayal teaches discernment. A loss teaches the value of what remains. So bring to mind a current difficulty in your own life. It might feel big and intimidating, or it might be a small, daily irritation that consistently drains your energy. Now, I want you to try on the Stoic lens for a moment. Look directly at this challenge and ask yourself, if this obstacle is the way, what is it trying to teach me? Is it here to build my patience, to test my courage, to force me to be more creative, or to show me what I truly value? How can I engage with this not as a victim of circumstance, but as an active student of strength? This simple shift in perspective doesn't make the problem disappear, but it does change everything about your experience of it. It transforms a threat into a challenge, a burden into a purpose. It reveals that the path to becoming mentally unshakable isn't found by avoiding the rocks in the river. but by learning to navigate them with skill and grace. Can you understand someone else's pain so deeply that you feel it with them, yet somehow keep your own inner peace completely intact? This is the delicate, powerful balance the Stoics called empathetic detachment, a form of compassion that strengthens your connections with others without draining your own emotional reserves. The Roman philosopher Seneca offered a brilliant insight into this practice, writing, "The wise man can comfort others and alleviate their distress without ever being downcast himself." Notice he doesn't say the wise man is cold or uncaring. He is deeply compassionate, fully present, and genuinely helpful, but he does not allow the other person's emotional storm to capsize his own inner calm. This isn't about building walls to keep people out. It's about building a strong foundation within yourself so you can truly be there for others without being pulled underwater alongside them. Think of this skill like being a lifeguard. A lifeguard's job is not to jump into the water and panic alongside a drowning person. If they did that, they would both be in trouble. Instead, the lifeguard remains calm, assesses the situation from a place of stability, and uses their training to provide effective help. They feel a deep desire to save the person, but their ability to do so depends entirely on their capacity to keep their head above water. Your emotional energy works the same way. When a friend or loved one is going through a crisis, if you immediately absorb all of their anxiety, fear, or sadness, you quickly become another casualty in the situation. You have two overwhelmed, distressed people instead of one calm person who can offer a steady hand. The Stoic goal is to be that calm person, the emotional lifeguard who can wade into the turbulent waters of someone else's experience to help, all while maintaining the composure needed to guide them both back to shore. This plays out in so many everyday moments. Imagine a close friend calls you, utterly distraught after a painful breakup. Their voice is shaking, they're crying, and their world feels like it's ending. The untrained response is to match their energy. You might feel your own heart start to race, your own stomach clench with their pain. You might start offering frantic, panicked advice or get swept into their narrative of despair. While this comes from a place of love, it often amplifies the chaos rather than calming it. The Stoic approach, guided by empathetic detachment, looks different. You listen with your full attention, you acknowledge their pain with genuine kindness, saying things like, "That sounds incredibly painful. I'm so sorry you're going through this." But internally, you are consciously managing your own state. You take a slow, quiet breath. You remind yourself that this is their experience to process, and your role is not to fix it for them but to be a stable, supportive presence. You might ask calm, grounding questions like, "What do you need most right now?" Or, "What's one small thing that might feel manageable today?" Your calmness isn't indifference, it's a gift. It becomes an emotional anchor they can subconsciously latch onto, helping to lower the intensity of their own distress simply because they are in the presence of someone who is not drowning with them. This practice requires a clear understanding of emotional boundaries. A boundary is not a barrier that says, "I don't care about your feelings." It is a recognition that says, "These are your feelings and those are mine." I can honor and respect your emotional experience without making it my own. I can care for you without taking responsibility for fixing your emotional state. This is where the Stoic virtue of justice also comes into play. It is just as important to be fair to your own well-being as it is to be compassionate to others. Constantly taking on the emotional burdens of everyone around you is a recipe for burnout, resentment, and exhaustion. It leaves you with nothing left to give. Empathetic detachment allows you to be an infinite wellspring of support because you have learned how to replenish your own waters. I encourage you to see your next difficult conversation as a training ground for this skill. The next time someone shares a problem or strong emotion with you, make a conscious effort to stay physically centered. Feel your feet flat on the floor, notice the solidity of the chair beneath you, and take a few quiet, deep breaths even as you listen. Your goal is not to become a blank slate, but to become a calm, non-anxious presence. Listen to understand, not just to reply. And when you feel that familiar tug, that urge to absorb their stress and make it your own, gently guide your focus back to your own center. You are offering them something far more valuable than shared misery. You are offering them a safe harbor in their storm, a quiet confidence that they can handle this because you are handling your own response to it with such steady grace. Not every thought needs to be spoken aloud. Our minds generate a constant stream of observations, judgments, and reactions. But the Stoics understood that giving voice to all of them is not a sign of intelligence or strength. It is often a sign of a mind not yet in full command of itself. The virtue of measured speech, knowing precisely when to speak and when to hold your silence, is a profound component of invisible strength. It's the discipline of treating your words not as an uncontrollable overflow of your internal state, but as a carefully chosen tool to be used with intention and purpose. The Stoic teacher Epictetus laid down a simple but incredibly demanding rule for this. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But he went even further, offering a powerful filter for every single thing we might consider saying. He advised, "Let your speech be such that you would not be ashamed if your enemy were to hear it." Imagine that bar. Before you speak, you pause and imagine that the person you trust least in the world is listening. Would you still say it? If the answer is no, then the thought should remain a thought. This practice is about so much more than just avoiding lies. It encompasses gossip, complaint, harsh criticism, and the unsolicited sharing of opinions that do nothing but add noise to the world. Gossip, for instance, is often a social bonding activity, a way to feel connected to others by sharing a judgment about someone who isn't present. But the Stoic sees it for what it is, a temporary and fragile connection built on a foundation of negativity. It erodes trust because if you speak about others this way, people will rightly assume you do the same about them, and it pollutes your own mind with petty judgments. Similarly, chronic complaint is a verbal habit that actively reinforces a sense of powerlessness. Every time you vocalize a complaint about the weather, the traffic, or a politician, you are not just describing a reality, you are rehearsing a story of your own victimhood to that reality. You are strengthening the neural pathways that lead to resentment and passivity, rather than the pathways that lead to acceptance or proactive change. Consider the practical power of applying this wisdom throughout an ordinary day. You're in a meeting and a colleague presents an idea you think is flawed. The automatic, untrained reaction might be to immediately point out the flaw, to showcase your own intelligence, or to steer the conversation in your preferred direction. But what happens if you choose silence in that moment? You create space. You allow the idea to be fully heard. You might discover that someone else raises the same concern, saving you from being the critic. You might even realize upon deeper listening that your initial judgment was wrong and the idea has merit you hadn't considered. Your silence allowed for a more collaborative and thoughtful outcome than your speech would have. Or picture receiving a provocative email that triggers you. The urge to fire off a sharp, clever, defensive reply is overwhelming. Your fingers itch to type. This is the critical moment of choice. The Stoic practice is to walk away, to not reply at all for a set period, perhaps an hour, perhaps until the next day. In that space of silence, the emotional charge almost always dissipates. You return to the email with clarity, able to respond to the core issue without the reactive venom, or you realize no response is actually the most powerful response of all. Your silence has protected your integrity and prevented unnecessary conflict. This extends to the most mundane interactions. Resisting the urge to offer unsolicited advice is a massive act of respect and strength. When a friend is sharing a problem, our instinct is often to fix it, to jump in with our solutions. But this often comes from our own discomfort with their distress rather than a genuine desire to help. Choosing to listen silently, to simply be present and ask thoughtful questions, is almost always a greater gift than any advice you could impart. It allows them to find their own solution, which is far more empowering. Even in positive scenarios, measured speech holds power. Constantly talking about your goals and plans can actually dilute your motivation, giving you a premature sense of accomplishment. Keeping your intentions silent until they are realized harnesses that energy inward, fueling your actions rather than your social image. I encourage you to try a simple but revealing experiment. For the next 24 hours, make it your mission to consciously monitor your speech. Carry a mental notepad. Before you speak, insert the smallest pause, just half a second, to run your words through Epictetus's filter. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this necessary? Is this kind? And would I be comfortable if my words were overheard by someone who wishes me ill? Then make a conscious choice. See how many times you decide that silence is actually the stronger, wiser option. Afterward, reflect. Did you avoid an unnecessary argument? Did you prevent yourself from spreading a piece of gossip? Did you feel a greater sense of self-control? This isn't about becoming silent and withdrawn. It's about becoming more powerful and precise with the words you do choose to use, understanding that sometimes the most impactful thing you can say is absolutely nothing at all. How do your daily routines shape your mental resilience? We often think of willpower as a burst of inspiration or a grand act of self-denial. But the Stoics understood something far more profound. True, unshakable strength is most often the product of quiet, consistent structure. It's the invisible architecture of your day that either supports your mental citadel or leaves it vulnerable to every passing storm. Marcus Aurelius, despite the unimaginable weight of leading an empire, clung to the power of routine as a lifeline. He wrote to himself, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." This wasn't a grumble, it was a ritual, a reaffirmation of his purpose. He continued, "What do I have to complain about if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do?" This simple morning reminder was a structured practice to combat inertia and align his first thoughts with his core values, setting a tone of duty and focus for the entire day. This is the Stoic view of routine, not as a monotonous restriction, but as a liberating discipline that frees your mental energy for what truly matters. The magic of a well-designed routine lies in its ability to automate virtue. Every time you make a decision, from what to wear to what to eat for breakfast, you expend a tiny amount of mental energy. This is a biological reality known as decision fatigue. By structuring your day with consistent habits, you effectively make hundreds of small choices, preserving your precious cognitive resources for the complex, unpredictable challenges that truly require your full attention. A Stoic routine is like a well-trained army. The foot soldiers, your daily habits handle the basic, repetitive tasks automatically, following their training without needing constant orders. This allows the general, your conscious, reasoning mind to remain in the command tent, calm and clear-headed, ready to strategize and make high-level decisions when a real crisis emerges. Without this structure, your mind is constantly bogged down in petty skirmishes, leaving you exhausted and reactive by the time a significant obstacle appears. Consider the transformative power of an intentional morning ritual. It doesn't need to be complex or start at 4 in the morning. It's about designing the first hour of your day to cultivate the state of mind you wish to carry forward. This could be as simple as a 5-minute practice of sitting in silence with your coffee, consciously considering what is within your control today and what is not. It might involve reading a few lines of Stoic wisdom or journaling one thing you intend to do with excellence and one thing you will accept with grace. This isn't about adding more tasks to your list. It's about creating a buffer zone between sleep and the demands of the world, a space where you, not your phone notifications or your inbox, set the initial tone for your mind. Similarly, a work routine that includes scheduled blocks for deep focus, interspersed with short breaks for a walk or a moment of reflection, is a practical application of Stoic temperance. It's the discipline of working with your natural rhythms rather than against them, ensuring sustained productivity without burnout. Even an evening routine is a form of Stoic preparation. A brief review of your day, not to dwell on mistakes, but to calmly assess what you learned and how you can improve tomorrow, is the practice of closing the day with intention, just as Seneca did, rather than collapsing in a heap of distraction and fatigue. The true strength of these routines is that they build resilience passively. You aren't trying to become disciplined in the abstract. You are simply following a predetermined path you laid out for yourself when you were in a calm and rational state. On days when your motivation is low, when your emotions are turbulent, or when unexpected bad news arrives, the routine carries you forward. You don't have to decide to be virtuous, you just have to follow the steps you already committed to. Your morning meditation or journaling session becomes an anchor, a non-negotiable touchstone of stability that reminds you who you are and what you value, even when everything else feels chaotic. The routine itself becomes the teacher, patiently reinforcing the behaviors of a calm, focused, and resilient mind day after day after day. I want you to take a quiet moment to evaluate just one of your own daily routines. It could be your morning, your workday, your evening, or even your weekly planning session. Look at it not as a random series of events, but as a structure you have built. Does this routine actively support your mental fortitude, or does it inadvertently create more chaos and decision-making? Does it begin and end in a way that centers you, or does it hand over control to external demands first thing in the morning and last thing at night? Your challenge is to choose one small part of that routine, just one, and consciously strengthen it this week. Perhaps it's committing to the first 10 minutes of your day being screen-free, or scheduling a 5-minute afternoon pause to practice the dichotomy of control. Infuse that small window of time with a clear, intentional practice that serves your inner peace. This isn't about a complete overhaul, it's about reinforcing a single pillar. For it is in these small, consistent architectural choices that the grand, unshakable structure of your mind is built. What if you could see every single setback not as a roadblock, but as a hidden invitation to adapt, to innovate, to find a different and perhaps even better way forward? This is the essence of adaptive thinking, a cornerstone of Stoic wisdom that transforms rigidity into resilience. It's the mental agility to release your death grip on a specific, predetermined plan the moment life suggests a different route. The great teacher Epictetus, who understood the nature of change better than most, offered a beautifully simple piece of guidance for this. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But he expanded on this with an even more practical insight, advising us to not seek for events to happen as you wish, but to wish for them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. This is the heart of adaptability. It's not passive acceptance, but an active, creative collaboration with reality itself. You are not surrendering to circumstance. You are choosing to dance with it, to use its momentum to steer yourself in a new direction. This skill is the absolute opposite of brittle thinking. A brittle mind has a single, fixed plan for happiness and success. It says, I must get this specific job, achieve this specific goal, or have this relationship unfold in this exact way to be happy. When life inevitably deviates from that narrow script, the brittle mind shatters. It responds with frustration, despair, and a sense of profound failure. The adaptive mind, however, holds all plans and preferences lightly. It has goals, but it treats the path to get there as a flexible, living thing. It's the difference between being a rigid oak tree in a hurricane and being a flexible willow. The oak fights the wind until it snaps. The willow bends, moves with the force, and remains standing, ready to grow again when the storm passes. Your adaptive thinking is that willow-like flexibility. It allows you to absorb the impact of unexpected events without breaking your core spirit. We can see this play out in so many areas of modern life. Imagine you've spent weeks planning an elaborate outdoor wedding. You've imagined the sun shining, the gentle breeze, it's a perfect picture in your mind. Then, on the morning of the event, the forecast changes dramatically and a torrential downpour is imminent. The brittle thinker would be devastated. They would spend the day in a state of grief and anger, mourning the loss of the perfect day they had envisioned, unable to see any beauty in the situation. The adaptive thinker certainly feels a pang of disappointment. That's only human, but they quickly pivot. They shift their focus from what they've lost to what they can create. Okay, the garden ceremony is out. What's the coziest, most romantic alternative indoors? How can we use the sound of the rain on the roof to make this even more memorable? The obstacle, the rain, literally becomes part of the new, unexpected story. The same principle applies to a career setback. Not getting the promotion you worked for is undeniably disappointing. The rigid thinker might see it as a final verdict on their abilities and worth. The adaptive thinker reframes it. They ask, what is this situation trying to teach me? Does this closed door mean I should develop a new skill? Could it be pointing me toward a different department or even a completely new industry where my talents might be a better fit? The failure is no longer an endpoint, it's a data point, a crucial piece of feedback you can use to recalculate your route. This power to reframe is your most potent tool for calm problem solving. When you encounter an obstacle, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You train yourself to ask, what can I do with this? This tiny shift in language changes everything. It moves you instantly from the powerless position of a victim to the empowered position of a creative agent. You are no longer staring at a locked door. You are now scanning the walls for windows, checking for loose floorboards, and considering if you even need to be in that room at all. Your energy flows into solution finding rather than complaint. This isn't about positive thinking in the sense of denying reality. It's about strategic thinking. It's about surveying the new, unexpected landscape you find yourself in and mapping the best possible path through it with the resources you currently have. Think back to a recent disappointment you experienced. It could be something as small as a friend canceling plans at the last minute, or as significant as a project not turning out as you hoped. Now, I want you to try on the lens of adaptive thinking for a moment. Revisit that event and ask yourself, if this wasn't a failure but simply a change in direction, what new paths did it make visible? Did the cancelled plans give you an unexpected quiet evening that you actually needed? Did the failed project teach you a crucial lesson that prevented a much larger mistake down the line? Can you find, even in a tiny way, how that setback might have served you? This isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about reclaiming your power by finding the utility within the difficulty. Every time you practice this, you are strengthening your mental flexibility, building a mind that can not only withstand life's inevitable changes, but can thrive because of them. Where do you look for joy, outside or within? So much of our daily energy is spent in pursuit of external validations for our happiness. The next promotion, the bigger house, the perfect relationship, the number of likes on a social media post. We operate on a silent assumption that our contentment is something to be found out there, something that will be delivered to us once we achieve the right combination of life circumstances. The Stoics offered a radical and liberating alternative to this exhausting chase. They proposed that true, lasting joy is not something we acquire, but something we cultivate from within, making our happiness utterly immune to the unpredictable fluctuations of fortune. It's about shifting the entire source of your well-being from things you cannot control to the one thing you absolutely can, your own character and your reasoned choices. Seneca, with his piercing clarity, captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient, for he that is so wants nothing." This is the essence of Stoic joy, a deep-seated satisfaction that comes from self-mastery and the profound understanding that you already possess everything you need to be at peace. This inner joy is not the same as a temporary burst of excitement or pleasure. External pleasures are fleeting and dependent on conditions. The delicious meal ends, the new car gets a scratch, the compliment is forgotten. Inner joy, however, is a stable undercurrent of contentment that persists regardless of what is happening around you. It's the quiet satisfaction of knowing you acted with integrity in a difficult situation. It's the deep appreciation for your ability to learn and grow. It's the sense of connection you feel to humanity when you help someone without any expectation of reward. This joy is rooted in the four cardinal Stoic virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. When you make choices aligned with these virtues, you are, by definition, living in accordance with your best self, and that alignment generates a profound and resilient sense of fulfillment that no external event can easily shake. Your self-worth becomes internally generated, a constant flame that burns on its own fuel, rather than a flickering candle easily extinguished by the slightest wind of change. Think about the simple, accessible ways we can tap into this inner wellspring every single day. Consider the act of learning something new for the pure pleasure of understanding, not for a certificate or a career advantage. Spending 30 minutes reading about a historical event that fascinates you, or trying to understand a basic concept in astronomy, or learning a few phrases of a new language. There is a quiet joy in the mere expansion of your own mind, a satisfaction that is entirely yours and independent of anyone else's recognition. Or think about the act of immersing yourself in nature. Taking a walk without your phone and truly noticing the intricate pattern of a leaf, the sound of birdsong, the feeling of the sun on your skin. This isn't about checking an exercise goal on your watch. It's about connecting with a sense of awe and perspective that reminds you you are a small part of a vast, beautiful system. Perhaps the most powerful example is the practice of helping others with absolutely no expectation of anything in return. Holding a door for someone, offering a genuine compliment to a stranger, or volunteering your time for a cause you believe in. The joy that arises from these acts isn't contingent on their gratitude or on anyone ever finding out about your good deed. It comes from the private knowledge that you have, in a small way, made the world slightly better, and that your capacity for kindness is a source of good that you always have access to. This week, I invite you to conduct a small but profound audit of your own sources of joy. Take a few quiet moments to reflect and identify one single source of genuine contentment that is completely independent of material success or external validation. It could be as simple as the feeling you get after a session of focused, deep work. It might be the quiet pride of resisting a temptation and staying true to a personal goal. It could be the sense of peace you feel during your morning coffee, just watching the light change in the room. Once you identify it, your practice is to consciously savor that feeling the next time it arises. Acknowledge it, sit with it, recognize that this feeling was generated by you for you, and that it cannot be taken away by any outside force. In that recognition, you begin to strengthen the most reliable and unshakable foundation for happiness you will ever find. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer, a powerful image that reveals the self-destructive nature of clinging to resentment. The Stoic approach to forgiveness is not about condoning harmful behavior or pretending an injury never occurred. It is a profound and deeply personal act of emotional liberation, a strategic release of a burden that you alone have been carrying. It's about reclaiming the mental and emotional energy that has been held hostage by a past event and redirecting it toward your present peace and future growth. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who faced countless betrayals and political intrigues, understood this intimately. He wrote in his private meditations, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In this single sentence, he captures the entire Stoic philosophy of forgiveness. The ultimate response to a wrong is not to perpetuate the cycle of anger and hurt, but to consciously choose a different path, a path defined by your own virtue, not by their vice. Your peace of mind becomes the victory. This practice is an exercise in reclaiming your sovereignty. When you hold a grudge, you are effectively allowing the person who wronged you to continue occupying space in your mind, rent-free. You replay the event, you re-experience the anger, and you keep the wound fresh long after the initial injury has passed. You are, in a very real sense, allowing them to hurt you over and over again. Stoic forgiveness is the decision to finally evict them from your mental real estate. It is the conscious choice to say, "This event happened, it was painful, but I am no longer willing to pay the ongoing emotional tax on my happiness for it." This does not mean you must seek out the person and offer a verbal pardon, especially if they are toxic or unrepentant. Reconciliation is a separate matter that involves two people and requires mutual respect and safety. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is an internal process that involves only you. It is a private transaction where you exchange the heavy currency of bitterness for the light, freeing asset of acceptance. Imagine a practical scenario. A former business partner made a decision that cost you financially and damaged your professional reputation. The injustice of it burns. The untrained response is to harbor a deep resentment, to fantasize about their failure, to tell and retell the story of their betrayal to anyone who will listen. This feels powerful, but it is an illusion. In reality, you are the one carrying the weight. Your sleep is disturbed, your focus is fragmented, and a low hum of anger colors your interactions with new colleagues. The Stoic path begins with a simple but difficult acknowledgement. You cannot change what happened. Their actions are in the past, firmly in the category of things outside your control. Your response, however, is yours to command. Forgiveness looks like making a deliberate choice in the quiet of your own mind to release the demand that the past be different. It might involve writing a letter you never send, expressing all your hurt and anger onto the page solely for the purpose of releasing it from your system. It means consciously refusing to bring them up in conversation, thereby starving the story of the oxygen it needs to keep burning. You are not doing this for them, you are doing it for you. You are choosing to redirect the energy once spent on resentment toward building a new, successful venture that proves Marcus Aurelius right. Your success and your integrity are the most powerful response. This act of internal release is one of the most selfishly beneficial things you can do for your own mental architecture. It is not a sign of weakness, but a tremendous demonstration of strength. It takes far more courage and fortitude to let go of a justified grievance than it does to cling to it. By forgiving, you are not saying what they did was okay. You are declaring that your peace is more important than their transgression. You are prioritizing your own future over a past you cannot change. The grudge that felt like a shield protecting your dignity was actually a cage, and forgiveness is the key that unlocks it, allowing you to move forward unencumbered. I want to invite you to try a brief but powerful exercise in this moment. Bring to mind one specific resentment you've been carrying. It doesn't have to be a monumental betrayal. It can be a lingering irritation with a family member, a frustration with a friend who let you down, or an old anger toward a colleague. Now, for just a moment, consider the weight of it. Feel the energy it requires from you to keep this story alive. Then, experiment with a single thought. What would it feel like to set that weight down just for today? You don't have to decide to forgive them forever. Just explore the possibility of granting yourself a 24-hour ceasefire from this particular resentment. Notice the sense of space that might create in your mind. That space, that freed energy, is your birthright. It is the invisible strength that awaits when you choose to stop drinking the poison and finally pour it out. How can you make Stoic strength a seamless part of your life? Something that flows naturally from you without constant effort or conscious struggle. After exploring all these powerful principles, from the dichotomy of control to the premeditation of evils, the final, most important step is integration. This isn't about becoming a perfect Stoic sage who never feels a flicker of irritation or doubt. It's about weaving these threads of wisdom into the very fabric of your daily existence until they become second nature, your default way of moving through the world. The goal is not to add more tasks to your already busy life, but to transform how you approach the tasks already there. The great teacher Epictetus gave us the ultimate standard for this when he said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." This is the core of it all. Your invisible strength is not measured by what you can quote from a book, but by how you handle a traffic jam, how you respond to criticism, or how you find joy on an ordinary Tuesday. It is philosophy lived in real time. Think of these practices not as a checklist to complete, but as a toolkit you carry with you everywhere. The power isn't in using one tool in isolation, but in learning how they all work together. Your morning moment of mindfulness, that conscious breath as you sip your coffee, prepares the ground for the dichotomy of control you'll need when your first meeting gets cancelled. The evening reflection you do in your journal helps you process the day's events with more clarity, making it easier to practice acceptance when an unexpected bill arrives. They are not separate exercises, they are a single, integrated system for building a resilient mind. For instance, your daily commute can become a rolling laboratory for Stoic practice. You can use the red lights as cues for a moment of presence, feeling the steering wheel under your hands and the rhythm of your breath. When traffic grinds to a halt, you can consciously apply the dichotomy of control, acknowledging that you cannot change the congestion, but you can choose to listen to an interesting audiobook or simply enjoy a few minutes of quiet. If another driver cuts you off, that's your opportunity to practice non-reactivity and empathetic detachment, considering that perhaps they are having a genuine emergency rather than taking it as a personal insult. One single, mundane part of your day becomes a rich training ground for multiple Stoic muscles working in concert. The beauty of this integration is that it happens in the smallest of moments. It's not a grand gesture. It's the tiny, almost imperceptible pause you take before responding to a stressful email, a pause where you access all your training at once. It's the conscious decision to release a grudge while you're washing the dishes, feeling the warm water on your hands as you metaphorically wash away the resentment. It's the flicker of gratitude you feel for your health as you walk up a flight of stairs, even if you're a little out of breath. This is how philosophy becomes embodied. It shifts from being something you think about to something you are. Your life itself becomes the practice. The obstacles, the irritations, the joys, and the quiet moments all become part of the curriculum. You stop seeing challenges as interruptions to your peace and start seeing them as the very exercises designed to strengthen it. This week, I want to invite you to begin this process of integration with a single, focused commitment. Look back over the principles we've discussed and choose just one Stoic exercise to consciously weave into your daily routine for the next 7 days. Don't try to do them all at once. Perhaps you choose to focus on the daily review, taking 5 minutes each night to ask yourself what you did well and where you could improve. Maybe you choose to practice the premeditation of evils each morning, mentally preparing for a few potential challenges to build your resilience. Or perhaps your practice is simply to insert one conscious breath between a trigger and your reaction every single time. The choice is yours. The important thing is the consistency and the intention. Watch how this one practice begins to subtly influence other areas of your life without any extra effort. Notice how it starts to feel less like an exercise and more like a natural part of who you are. This is how you build a fortress of the mind, not all at once, but by laying one solid, intentional brick every single day. And so we arrive back at the very heart of the matter, the simple yet profound truth that has echoed through every principle we've explored. Unshakable mental strength is not a loud, external performance, but a quiet, internal architecture built one conscious choice at a time. It is the cumulative result of those daily, often invisible, practices: the pause before a reaction, the conscious release of a grudge, the gentle return of focus to the present moment. This is the essence of the Stoic path: emotional mastery, unwavering presence, and deep resilience, all cultivated not for an audience, but for the peace and power they bring to your own life, regardless of the chaos that may swirl around you. True fortitude was never about building higher walls to keep the world out. It was about constructing an inner citadel so strong that no external event could ever breach its gates. Your validation, your worth, your stability, these are not found in the applause of others or the perfection of your circumstances. They are found within, in the silent sovereignty of your own reasoned mind. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who guided us throughout this journey, perhaps said it best in his private writings, offering a perfect closing thought. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. This is that inner citadel. This is your retreat, your unassailable fortress. It is always accessible, always available, requiring nothing more than a turn of your attention inward. It is the quiet space you create between an event and your response, the resilient core that remains steady when plans fall apart, and the compassionate heart that can understand others without losing itself. This strength doesn't eliminate life's difficulties. It simply makes you immune to their power to destroy your peace. You learn to meet every event, whether labeled good or bad by the world, with the same steady calm and unwavering character. The real work, of course, begins now in the choices that fill your very next hour. This isn't about memorizing quotes or striving for perfection. It is about gentle, consistent application. So I want to leave you with a single, simple question to reflect on. looking back over the principles we discussed, which one feels most immediately relevant to a challenge you are facing right now? Is it the practice of pausing before you react to a trigger? Is it the conscious effort to focus only on what is within your control in a stressful situation? Or is it the decision to practice a moment of silent gratitude for something you typically overlook? Choose just one. Make that your focus for today. Then tomorrow, choose another. This is how the fortress is built, brick by mindful brick. If this exploration of invisible strength has resonated with you, if you're ready to build that inner citadel for yourself, consider subscribing to the channel. We delve into timeless wisdom like this every week, providing practical tools to help you live a more grounded, resilient, and purposeful life. And I would genuinely love to hear from you. This isn't a one-way conversation. In the comments below, share your thoughts. Which Stoic practice are you most excited to try? What is one small way you will start cultivating your own invisible strength today? Your insights not only help you solidify your own learning, but also help build a supportive community where we can all learn and grow together. Thank you for investing this time in your own peace and power. Remember, the strongest walls are the ones no one else can see.